Well, welcome to this live screen of Mandelbulb3d. In this stream, what I wanted to do is create an 8K Mandelbulb image. And I would like it very much if you could follow along. As a matter of fact, if you don't already have the Mandelbulb3d fractal generator application, you can go download it from this location here. Okay, it's free, it's open source, and it is specifically intended to create Mandelbulb 3D fractals. And basically they're fractals which are based upon the Mandelbrot, which is a two-dimensional structure that will apply spatial coordinates to the fractal image and basically make it a bulb. Okay? So what I wanted to do with this live stream is create an 8K still image. Okay? Now what that's going to do is it's going to take us into a couple areas that are quite important for working with the Mandelbulb3d fractal generator. Generally what I like to do, the sequence that I follow is basically I will set up the work area environment so that I have the most efficient working sequence with the Mandelbulb3d application. Then what I do is I go for the base graphic. I put aside thoughts of lighting and coloring until I get a good base graphic, a good base fractal. And I'll explain that. The other thing, then I'll move on to composition. I want to get a good scene. I want to get something interesting. Then what I do is I move on to lighting and coloring. And then I'll move into quality. Now that's a very, very key aspect of working with the Mandelbulb3d. Then what I do is I move on to output. All right, and then of course we want to utilize the still image. Okay, so let's get the Mandelbulb application up and running. All right. Now this is just a theme that I particularly like. You select any theme you want. All right, so we'll get a bulb rendered here. This is how Mandelbulb starts up. If you wanted to change the themes, you would go under Prefs and Themes. Okay. Now, the first area that I like to do is to work on the work area setup. All right. So let's do that. So what I typically do is I go over to the preferences and I will select the directories that are going to be used by Mandelbulb for things like saving image files, saving the parameter files, saving actual graphics, and then the other one down here is the animation files, although we're not going to be getting into animation today. So these top three directories, set them to your hard drive work area to make it a little bit easier for you to work with the Mandelbulb as you go along. Okay? All right, now the next thing I like to do, and probably the most important of all of them, is to find a base graphic, a base fractal, something that I'm willing to work with and work around and build upon. Okay. Now, I've got a lot of Mandelbulb training videos up on YouTube. There's about 400 of them, and at some point, I thoroughly discuss formulas. All right, there's an entire course on just formulas up there. Take a look. But what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the formulas, okay, because there's plenty of training about that already. I'm heading for an 8K still graphic. So we want to stay on track for that for this particular live stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the interpolate hybrid mode, which gives me the ability to take two formulas and mix them together. Okay, I'm going to keep it pretty simple, something easy enough to understand. Follow along if you can. Okay, if you got your Mandelbulb set up. and running, or you could review this video a little bit later and follow along at that time. So I'm going to go to interpolate hybrid mode. I'm going to pick two amazing box. And the reason I'm picking that for this particular demonstration is because it gives us a lot of good structure to work with. All right, and I think you'll appreciate just the kind of interesting graphics that you can get from Mandelbulb. And an amazing box is actually a very good place to start. All right, so I'm going to pick, for Formula 1, I'm going to pick the amazing box. And down here, I'm going to give it a weight of 1. That'll mean something to you in a few minutes. For Formula 2, I'm going to go and I'm going to pick the amazing box formula again. All right, now this is assigned a weight of 0. I'm going to give it a weight of 1. All right, so I've got two formulas. Well, actually, I have two instances of the amazing box formula, each with a similar weight, identical weight actually. We're going to change that in the interpolate mode, which means that Mandelbulb is going to mix the two formulas together to give us a result. Let's come over here, calculate this, and see what we get. Well, all right, what we have here is that the camera is buried deep inside of the fractal bulb. Okay, it's buried. And we're going to change that. Obviously, this is not going to work for us. What I like to do is, because I'm heading for a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, I like to set this for 16 by 9 aspect ratio. Now, here's a key thing. Start with your development at low resolution, because you don't want to sit here while you're working and you're thinking and you're imagining and you're trying to find your base graphic. You don't want to sit here and watch Mandelbulb slowly render a high resolution graphic. You don't need to go high right away. All right? So I'm just going to leave it way down here so that we can get some quick action as we locate the base graphic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the navigator. Okay. Now the navigator window is showing us that we are indeed buried. We have the camera buried. We have the camera buried inside the bulb. Okay. We need to fix that, because obviously that's not going to work for us. So what I'm going to do, you see here I've got two formulas. Here's formula number 1, and here's formula number 2. They're both amazing box, so this label is not changing. Okay. And they both have a weight of 1, which I had set over here. Okay. All right. And they both have an iteration count of 1. That's an iteration count of 1 and 1. Okay. I need to get this camera unburied. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the scale. All right. I'm going to use the scale property to basically make the fractal smaller. All right. So my camera was buried in here, but I made the fractal smaller so the camera is no longer buried. Okay. So I'm in the process of finding a good base graphic. All right. You see all of this, this dull yellow? That means that a portion of the bulb is being clipped off. The camera can't see that. It can't see that, that aspect of the bulb. So I need to fix that too. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to formula number 2, which is also amazing box, and I'm going to adjust that scale as well. All right. So now I've actually got a pretty interesting scene. That is some progress, and so what I'm going to do is send that back to main, calculate. Now, one of the key things about working with the Mandelbulb3d application is to save at points of progress, because the Mandelbulb may crash on you, But more importantly, it's so that you have a historical accounting of the work that you've done as you progress through the process of creating a fractal all the way out to generating an output. Okay? So save at progress points. All right? So what I'm going to do is come up here and I'm going to save. Now I've got 3 different ways to save here. One is an M3I. Again, I've talked about this in my YouTube tutorial videos for the Mandelbulb3d application. The M3I will save this file with just the with the parameters. In other words, the formula settings and the position and the coordinates and all that stuff, the parameters. It will save the parameters along with an image that is buried in or payloaded, all right, with the properties. Okay, I typically will save just the properties. So an M3P will save just the properties, no payload image. All right. Now, what I do is I save as an M3P, which is what the P means, plus a JPEG. And that gives me an independent view of the fractal that I was designing at that point. All right, so I'm going to save this as a JPEG plus an M3P. All right, so now I'm going to call this My Live 8K version 1. Or you could say 0.1 or progress 1 or whatever you want to do. All right, but that, for me, that's an indicator that I've actually gotten to a point where I have something. It's not the final, but I have something. And I want to save that. Okay, now if we take a look at the folder, you'll see here that there is my M3P, my parameters file, and here's the JPEG of what I just have on the screen. Now obviously it's low resolution because I haven't perfected this particular image just yet. All right, we're getting there. Okay. Now I have a almost base graphic, but it's not quite what I want to do. I don't want to turn that into a big picture and put it up on my wall. That's not good enough. So the next thing I do is I focus on composition. All right, so composition. This is where I want to actually make that base graphic interesting visually. All right, so I'm going to turn my attention back to the navigator. Just to be careful, I'm going to pull this parameter, pull this image, set of properties, over to the navigator by pressing the parameter button. Okay, so let's do composition. Let's go find something interesting in this fractal. Now, the really cool thing about the Mandelbulb3d fractal generator is that it renders very, very quickly, which makes it actually a usable graphic application, which is not too bad for the 2010 to 2015 era. All right. Now, there's a lot of very interesting detail that can be explored about rendering Mandelbulb. But right now, what we want to do is we want to find a good composition. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk in. All right, now down here, these are my navigation controls on the navigator. I'm going to walk in and see if I can find something interesting. Okay. All right, now I'm going to slide up. I'm going to walk in a little bit more. Now I'm going to look down. Look down. There we go. Okay. I'll walk in a little bit more. I'm looking for something that's interesting now, okay? Just like in photography, you're looking for a composition which is interesting. Leading lines, vanishing point, object positioning, that sort of thing, okay? Think like a photographer. Now, okay. Now you notice here that I haven't done anything on lighting and coloring because I'm following my personal workflow, which is get the base graphic, then develop composition, and then move on to perfecting that particular image. Again, so I'm looking for something interesting here, something that I would be willing to put up on the wall. All right, that's not too bad. For demonstration purposes, that's not too bad. Okay, so now let's say that I have achieved my next goal in my workflow to find a composition that I like and that I'm willing to put more effort into. That's key. All right, let's push that back over to main. All right, let's render it. I'm still working at a low resolution, and you'll find out why in a few minutes. Now I have a progress point here, so I'm going to save this as a JPEG plus. All right, this time I'm going to call it version 2. All right, because I'm closer. All right, so now if Mandelbulb crashes or I change my mind or whatever, I've got 2 files that I can refer back to and revert to. Okay. Now, next in my personal workflow is lighting and coloring. Now, lighting and coloring is kind of interesting because with the Mandelbulb application, quality is somewhat interconnected with coloring and lighting. All right? And so you could go for quality first and then lighting. It really depends upon what you prefer to do. I personally prefer to work on lighting and coloring because I may not be happy with the composition that I came up with because I can't make it light properly. So I choose to have coloring and lighting next in my workflow before quality. Again, because I may find that I can't light this the way I want. Okay, so next in the workflow would be lighting and coloring. All right, so we don't need the formulas panel anymore. I'm going to close that. I'm going to open up the lighting. Now, here's where we're going to do some interesting work. All right, what I want to do is I want to take this camera position, this composition, and I want to make it interesting. I want to give it some depth. I want to give it some interest. I want to use lighting to make it an interesting scene. I want to make it so that you almost feel like you're there. Well, that's the viewer feels like they're there. All right. So let me do this for you. Let me turn on this panel right here, and you can see this whole area better on your screen. All right. So I want to make this image more interesting. Now, there's a couple ways I can do that. I can use the source light right here. I can change the angle of the source light like that. I can do that. All right. Now, if I did something like this, and you can see where these two sliders are right on top of one another, okay? I basically, let's make this the bulb. You are the camera. I basically have light coming directly from you. All right. That's not that interesting. If I change the angle of the light in the y-axis, Now the y-axis would be this way. All right. The x-axis, which is down below, is this way. Okay. So I have the ability to change the x and the y position of my source light. Now that makes it more interesting. You'll notice here that I'm putting the light right up here in the corner. All right. All right. Or I could put the light down here, and well, in this corner down here, down in here. All right. Or I could put the light over in this corner. Let's get, there we go. Right. Okay. Up in this corner. All right, you see where this is going, is I can use the source light position in the X and the Y direction to give me an interesting scene. Not just something that's just flat on light, but something that's interesting. I'm going to put the light source up here in the upper left corner. All right, I don't want the actual source in the view. I want the effect of the light. All right, so that's pretty good. All right, it's more interesting than flat on. All right, let's hold here. Now, the next thing I like to do is in the lighting phase of my workflow, I like to go after, I like to create depth. All right, and you can create depth with the tools that Mandelbulb gives you. Using the ambient. Ambient is the light that's scattered all in the environment, and it's random, and it's just falling on your object, in this case, randomly. It's ambient. It's everywhere. As opposed to diffuse, which is right here. Diffuse light is what directly hits and reflects off of your surface. So you've got diffuse light, you've got ambient light to work with, and you also have what's called fog to work with as well. So you've got three important areas of lighting that can actually make quite a difference in your scene. Let's go for ambient first. All right. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change the ambient lighting. Now, if I increase the ambient lighting, I'm increasing all the lighting that's in the scene that's scattered everywhere, which happens to obviously fall on the object and reflect off of it. But I want to create an interesting scene by using shadowing. All right, so now here I can adjust the depth of my ambient, how far into the object the ambient light will penetrate. Yeah, something like that. Okay. All right. Now I can come over here and I can work on diffuse lighting. All right. And now here I'm increasing the intensity of the diffuse lighting, decreasing it. All right. Well, I could make a night scene if I wanted to here, right? All right. All right. So now let's go over to fog. Now I have three controls here, which can get quite interesting. You'll notice here when I adjust this dynamic fog, all right, I'm actually impacting these deeper recessed areas that normally would not have received any light. All right, you see that? All right. So they're calling it fog. It's not really. It's more of a modification of the lighting, but a different kind of modification. All right, so anyway, let's make, what we want to do here is I want to make this fog, I want to make this area in here kind of interesting. I want it to actually be sort of visible, because what I'm going for here is depth. I want depth. I want a sense of depth. Okay, so far I have made some adjustments with the fog controls, the ambient controls, and the object diffuse lighting. Now, I can actually click on this and get a color adjustment window up. And now I can change the coloring of my scene. So this is why I have lighting slash coloring. They're somewhat combined, and the reason that they're combined is because the way that the ray marching system works within the Mandelbulb is that your coloring and your lighting are both determined by the ray marching technique that they use. Now, all right, let's just say I don't really like blue. There's a couple options. I can come down here and I can click this random, and it will randomly select some colors. Well, actually, that's not too bad. I could almost envision being in some sort of a very mechanical environment, all right, with my still image here. And I can come down here and I right-clicked on this this box down here, and I can change things. I can change some coloring, all right, and I can move this around. You can see here how it's having an impact. That's a little on the more on the bluish side, all right, because I'm pulling this blue gradient into the scene. All right, and not too bad, not too bad. Let's stay with that. I got a progress point, so now I want to save this. I'm going to save this, and I could call this V3, but I could also say, you know, coloring is done. I could say that. All right. Okay. Now, all right. So I've got some more controls here. I can come back in here. There's some more ambient stuff I can do here. All right, but this is close enough, well, for purposes of demonstration anyway. And what we're doing here is we're illustrating that you're able to kind of progress through the scene, a good base graphic, composition, lighting and coloring, and now quality. Now, the quality is very important. If you want to do an 8K still, that's a lot of pixels. Okay, what is that? 7680 by 4320. That's a lot of pixels. And if you wanted to print that, send that to the printer, all right, and print it out at, say, 300 dots per inch, you're going to get a rather substantially large frameable picture back, and set you back a couple $100. The point is that you can do that with the Mandelbulb application. You can. The Mandelbulb application does not limit you in the amount of resolution, the amount of pixels that you can have in a still image. Ironically enough, Windows restricts how big how high a resolution you can get. Windows has a limit for a 32-bit application, which is what Mandelbulb is. It has a limit in the amount of memory that a 32-bit application can claim from Windows to do its work. All right, so you're limited by your Windows environment, not by the application, but you still have a limit. But there's ways around that limit. But what we can do is we can safely create a 4K or even an 8K still image. We can actually create 4K and 8K animations as well. They just take longer to render. Okay, so now we're coming up on quality. If I don't have good quality, this image is not going to print well. Now, with the Mandelbulb application, there is a process which is called ray marching. And what ray marching does, this is all math. It's I'm not going to explain the math, but it's all done by mathematical equations in the software's code. But what it does is it shoots a ray from the camera position, You are the camera. There's only one camera in Mandelbulb. You are it, the camera. It shoots a ray out. And when that ray hits a surface, a Mandelbulb surface, it says, aha, that's the surface. Now, many millions of these rays are shot out, but we're just interested in one ray. It shoots a ray out, it hits the Mandelbulb object, and it says, there's a surface. Now, if the ray is shot out and it does not hit the surface, that pixel will not be sharp. All right? If the ray is shot out and overshoots the surface, that pixel will not be sharp. Your job is to get that pixel to land as accurately on the surface as possible. That's your mission. All right? Okay, I have something here that will give you a little bit of an idea how this Mandelbulb ray marching works. All right? Now, what I'm going to show you here is a little animation that I put together that will, let's get you some, okay, there we go. That will give you a pretty good idea how this ray is shot out from the camera position and finds the surface. In the Mandelbulb application, the rendering is occurring by finding the fractal bulb. The fractal bulb is already invented. The formulas that I showed you have already created a fractal bulb, a fractal object. The mission of the rendering is to find that bulb. All right, let's take a look at this animation here. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're setting up a surface. There's the fractal surface. Here is a ray. That's the path of a ray. Here's your camera. All right, and these little red dots here. All right, those are actually points at which the internal code will say, did I get a hit yet? Did I find the bulb, the surface? No. Do it again. No. Do it again. I still haven't found the surface? Do it again. And do it again and do it again and do it again. So that's why you have a progression of the red dots that are flying towards the fractal surface, okay? And so it finds the surface, and we call that a hit. Now, this is, what I'm going to tell you is advanced stuff, but it's kind of important. With the Mandelbulb implementation of the distance estimate, the DE, what happens is that the ray will have big steps when it's confident that the Mandelbulb surface is not close by. Big steps, big steps, big steps, big steps. As the ray gets closer to the Mandelbulb surface, the steps get smaller and smaller and smaller until you get a hit. All right? That is the reason why the Mandelbulb application renders as quickly as it does. It's an extremely efficient method of rendering a scene in which the object, in our case, the Mandelbulb fractal object bulb, already exists. We have to shoot out a ray. We got to find out where that thing is, and we got to measure that. Okay, so in terms of quality, right here, this is extremely important. You don't want that ray to undershoot it, and you don't want that ray to overshoot it. You want that ray to hit it precisely right on that surface, and that will give you the sharpest possible pixel, and more importantly, it will give you extremely good light and shadowing with a good DE hit. Now, all right, you're probably wondering, well, how do I implement all of this over in the Mandelbulb application? If you go to the Calculations tab, let's get you a better view of that, okay? You've got a thing here called a DE stop. Now what that really means is the DE stop threshold, all right? And in this case, I've got it set to 1. Well, that's just how Mandelbulb started up. It's set to 1, all right? What that means is that when you shoot out when the Mandelbulb shoots out a ray, it will try to get within 1 ray stop, all right, to the surface. All right, let's just exaggerate this, and let's say that 1 means we stop right here. All right, we'll stop a little short, If I was to set that to, say, 0.1, I'm going to stop really close to it, all right? If I was to set that to 20, it stops way out here. Now, the closer you can get to the surface in terms of a DE stop, the closer you get to the surface, the better your quality is. Let me demonstrate that to you. So let's say that I put a DE stop of 20 in here. That's craziness. Now watch what happens to this image when I calculate it. All right. You see here, I have extremely little detail because what happened is I told the ray to stop looking for the fractal too quick. It stopped way out here. And so I don't have any detail. All right, let's put a ray stop of 10 in. Let's get it right here. Let's put 10 in there, and I'll recalculate it. Now I got more detail because rather than stopping here, I'm stopping here. All right, let's cut that in half. Let's put a 5 in, see what we got. More detail. All right, so let's get this down to 2. More detail yet. Let's get that down to 1. All right, more detail yet. So the point being here is that I am telling with this control, I'm telling the Mandelbulb application what my preferences is for when you stop and say, I've found the surface. It's called the DE stop threshold. What is absolutely amazing about the Mandelbulb3d fractal generator is that the authors of this software gave you these controls. If you know how to use these controls, you can get absolutely stellar and remarkable quality out of this application for still images as well as animation images as well. If you know this stuff right here, you've mastered Mandelbulb, no questions asked. Okay. All right. So, okay. I'm going to stay with the DE stop of 1. In this live stream, I'm not going to try to explain all of this. It would not achieve our objective of getting you to a point where you can create a high quality 8K still. All right. So let's move on. All right. Let's say, all right, we don't need that. Let's say that we have achieved a quality that's good enough for now, but we're probably not done yet. The one way to learn if this quality is really as good as they say, all right, we need to have a bigger picture. Because right now we're 400 by 270 pixels. That's not much at all. And that will not print well at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump this up to 1920 by 1080. All right. All right, what's that? That's 2K. I'm going to render that. So now I have pretty good detail, although I can see some problems with it already. Now, Mandelbulb magically had set that to 4 because I have this little bugger checked on right here. All right, and let's not worry about any of this detail stuff. That's an entire course right here. That's an entire multi-hour course right here. All right, let's set that back down to 2, and I'm going to recalculate. No, let's watch the quality here. It's taking a little bit longer to render, understandable. Let's get the Windows magnifier up. All right, I'm at 200. I'm at a 200% magnification. All right. All right, you could see where the lines are not quite straight. A little bit of loss here in quality along the edges. You see that? Okay. All right, I can do better. There's a loss of detail here. All right. So, okay. Let's put a DE stop of 1 here and render that. All right, now we're getting better detail. You see that? Better detail. Let's get the Windows magnifier up. Look around. The better detail. That's better. Okay. You see right in here, you see those little dots right here. All right, you see in this dark area here. All right, you're still getting some detail. All right. Now, let's get crazy here, and let's make this 0.5. Again now, matter of fact, I'll start rendering and then I'll talk. With this 0.5, I've said to Mandelbulb, I want you to get really close to that surface before you say, I hit. All right, let's get the Windows magnifier going. All right. Oh, now what we have is we have too much detail. We're getting distortion in here. All right. Basically, the Mandelbulb DE stop threshold of 0.5 is so close that it really can't do a very good job in rendering the pixel. Each pixel on this screen here took a ray. Pixel 1, Pixel 2, Pixel 3. All right. So a DE stop of 0.5 is not good. I'm going to go back to 1. I'm going to go back to 1.5. I'm settling it in to where I'm getting an acceptable quality. Again, I'm in the workflow arena of the quality. All right. So let's render that out. Okay. From a printing standpoint, this is probably acceptable, but I'm not 8K yet. I am only 2K. All right. So now let's bump this up to let's go to 4K. All right. So what's that? 3820. There we go. Okay. All right, 4K. All right, Mandelbulb changed that for me. I'm going to put that back to 1.5. Calculate. All right, now it's taking a little bit longer to render for a couple reasons. First of all, and most importantly, there's more pixels, so there's more rays. All right, pixel 1, pixel 2, pixel. There's more rays that it has to render out. All right, now. Let's get the Windows magnifier up. All right, not bad. Okay, you see how this little dot right in here, all right, is showing up? You see there's a dot over here, which indicates that there should be a dot here. I'm losing some quality, losing a little bit of quality. There's also some dithering going on. That's this jagged here along straight lines that are positioned diagonally. Obviously, the whole image is digital, okay? So that's called dithering, stair-stepping. All right. So what I could say is, well, maybe I need to go a little bit better in the DE stop threshold. I'll try that. All right. It's obviously taking longer to render. The reason it's taking longer to render is simply because I'm asking the DE ray to stop even closer to the surface. So it does boom, 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 boom. So that all that takes time. But let's see what we got. Let's get the magnifier up and running. All right, you see how I've got the detail? In that previous render at a DE stop of 1.5, I didn't have the dot here. I lost the dot. So a DE stop of 1.2 right here actually gave me more detail in my scene. All right, but I don't want to push my luck here. I'm not going to drive this all the way down to 0.1. It would be a mess, and it would take a long time to render. And I showed you how you get too close to the surface and it can't properly render the pixel. Okay. So 1.2 is not too bad. All right, now let's get this up to 8K. What's that? 7680. All right, 16:9 resolution. Okay, here we go. So now we're going to do a big render. And while we're rendering here, let's see, I want to turn that on for you. And I want to, we don't need the navigator anymore. Let's turn that. Let's get these up. Oh, all right. And let's get the render. Okay, so let's render, and I'll kind of do a recap here. Okay. So the whole process here of producing a high quality, high resolution still image would be, in my case, I follow the workflow of find a good base graphic, and I get composition, I get a good, interesting view. All right, then I go for lighting and coloring, then I go for quality. All right, and that brings me to a point where I can do a final render for an output. I may actually do some post-processing. I don't know, maybe pull into Photoshop or do something else with it. All right, and prepare it for whatever I'm going to do with it. I may send it out to be printed, in which case I'd want a 300 DPI file, or I may upload it, or who knows, maybe I'll put it out for sale and license it out as, somebody can use the graphic for whatever their purposes are. Okay? So what I've done here is I've created an 8K image. Now when this renders, we'll take a closer look at it and we'll see what we got. All right, so now I need to save it. All right, save my work, and now I'm going to say, I don't know, let's say version 4, let's say final 8K. Okay? And that tells me where I'm at. Now that's saving, that is saving the parameters and the image and everything else. So in case something goes wrong, I can recover my work. Now we can take a look at this, and we see we've got a pretty interesting image. We've got some really interesting shadow areas. The lighting, pretty good. There's a sense of depth here. All right, this is well lit. This is in shadow. This is in dark, deep shadow. So I get the sense of depth. That's important. All right, let's knock this down here. All right, and that is a small version of my final image. Not bad. Now, at this point, I could revert back and I could work on composition. I could go back to the navigator. I can move this around. The problem is that I'm at such a high resolution that the navigator is going to be slow. That's why I say work at low resolution, nail it all down, and then when you got something you really like in terms of your base graphic and your composition, then work on refining the details, because you don't want to do coloring and then go to the navigator and then you change the position and that throws off your shadows and now you don't like them anymore. So one of the quick ways to get lost with the Mandelbulb application is to be working on stuff that's probably going to get changed as soon as you change the camera position. Now your shadows are off, or you don't like your color, or the color's thrown off. So that's why I say start with the base graphic, all right, then composition, then get into lighting and coloring, and work your way toward a final output. All right, so what we have here is pretty decent. Output, that's our next stage. So what I'm going to do here is go over to Save Pick, and I'm going to save it as a PNG. I also have the option of saving it as a JPEG, but JPEG is a lossy compression, so I lose some of that quality that I put a lot of work into. PNG is a lossless file saving. All right, I always choose PNG. I can also save it as BMP, which they'll give you that option when you go to save it. I like PNG, and PNG also maintains transparency, the alpha channel. All right, now, if I was to save right now, I've got my viewing ratio is all, is all the way down, and it's going to save at this small resolution. So before I save my big image, I want to get that viewing ratio back to 1:1. All right, let's save this. All right, now here we go. Let's. All right, we don't need to call this a V4 or anything. This is the final output. All right, so let's save that. All right, and let's just give it a little bit of time to save the file. It's a big file. All right, and here we go. So, all right, so here is my 8K. Where to go? There's my 8K final right there. All right, let's just get that real nice and big. That's really big. Okay, that's a beautiful image. Okay. I got some depth in here, very good detail. Not too bad. If I get the Windows magnifier up, let's see what we got. Not too bad. Look at the details there. Little dots are all there. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, and let's use this and really get in here. All right, look at that depth. Look at that. Look at that. We've got lighting all the way down deep in these recesses here, which gives me a really good sense of depth. All right, way down in there until it finally goes black. And that's the beautiful thing about the Mandelbulb. Look at that. Look at the depth that I'm able to get. All deep down in here, right in here, there's still something that we can see. All right. You can do some remarkable stuff with this application, but you got to follow a workflow that doesn't get you in trouble. All right? You don't want to be in a situation where you work on a nice scene and then you get the coloring just the way you want, you get the lighting, and then you go change the position and you throw everything off. You just don't want to go there. There is no need for the Mandelbulb application to be a frustrating experience. No need whatsoever. But you do need to understand the application and, more importantly, the workflow. Get a workflow that works for you, that doesn't force you to go back and redo things. All right, now, I'll give you a little bonus here. A little bonus. All right. All right, so if I open the properties of this, all right, obviously I'm on a Windows environment. I've got comments here, all right? Part of my meta tags is that I have comments. I can put comments in there. I actually want to save the properties of this Mandelbulb application in those comments. All right. And what you do is you go over to Save, and you save all the parameters to the clipboard. I just clicked it. All the parameters, lighting, formulas, everything is now in basically encoded. Let's see if I can get you a look. All right, here we go. Okay. All right, here. So I'm gonna paste in. All right, there's the properties. All right, there's the properties of this entire project right here. I'm going to put those properties in. It would. Oh, I guess I lost my properties. Okay, let's reopen that. Properties. Where'd you go? There we go. I'm going to put the properties in the comments. Here we go. So there we go. I pasted them in. All right. So all of this Mandelbulb fractal definition code is now part of this file. All right, it's part of that file. Now I'm going to prove it to you. All right, so this is just a little bonus extra for you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the Mandelbulb application. All right, and I want to make sure that there is nothing on my clipboard that Mandelbulb can use. All right, so I'm going to just put hello, and I'm going to copy that to the clipboard, Control-C. All right, now if I paste it, you see here on my Windows clipboard, the properties don't exist anymore. All right, so I'm just proving to you that what I'm going to do next is not because the properties were left on the clipboard. The Mandelbulb gives you the ability to open up a set of properties from the clipboard. Now, I only have hellos there, so if I do that, it doesn't know what to do. Now, that's an error. Don't know what to do. No valid text found. Okay. So let's go back over to our little a little 8K file. There we go. I opened up the comments. Now I'm going to do a Control-C. All right, and I paste that into Notepad for you to see that I actually did copy it from the comment metadata. Now, from clipboard, calculate. So what I've just shown you here is a way to save the Mandelbulb properties with the 8K image. One of the benefits of that is that you don't have to have a separate M3P file kicking around that eventually you lose. Or if you wanted to sell or license this image to somebody, you could say as a little bonus, you could recreate and even modify that image by going into the comments metadata, pulling out and putting them into your Mandelbulb, and you can change it any way you want. All right, so it's a little extra bonus for you for today's live session. Okay, all right, so let's clean up a little bit here, and we can kind of recap. All right, so what I've done today is I have gone all the way from opening up Mandelbulb, 2 formulas in interpolate mode, 2 amazing boxes. I found a good base graphic by modifying the properties a little bit. All right, then I moved into composition where I got a good scene. All right. Then I worked on my lighting, coloring. Then I worked on quality, all right, until I got really good detail there by manipulating the by manipulating the area right in here. Okay. All right, and then I outputted as a 8K. You keep in mind that, as you probably noticed, that what I did is I started with that really low resolution. Was it 480 by 270? All right. Then I worked my way up to 2K, 1920 by 1080. Then I worked my way up to 4K, then 8K. All right. You reduce frustration by not trying to go for the final goal too soon. You kind of work your way to that higher level, the higher level output. Okay, so then I got to output. All right, and the next thing is if you want to utilize your 8K still image, which is a PNG, so it's a lossless compression. It's a lossless with no compression. Now you can pull it into another application. You can do some post-processing on it, crop it, modify it, sharpen it if you think you need to. All right, adjust the curves, that sort of thing. And you can get to a point where you've got a good file that you could send out to be printed, or even if you wanted to license it. All right, so that concludes this live stream of creating an 8K still image from the Mandelbulb3d fractal generator. I hope this has been valuable for you. Now keep in mind, on my Mandelbulb channel at Learn Mandelbulb3d on YouTube, I've got like 400 different videos, and I'm covering all kinds of different areas. I cover some animation. I also cover some how to get high-resolution images. I call that the Epic rendering series. There's a whole bunch of videos that talk about formulas. Okay? I even go into animation. Animation is a very advanced topic, but what we've done here, and let me leave you with this thought, what we've done here is we've created a graphic, and the composition, the coloring, and all of what we did today is the basis for what you would do to prepare for an animation, because that base graphic is still going to it's going to be replicated. That base graphic will be utilized as frames are interpolated over your the entirety of your animation. So what we did today is a prerequisite for preparing a really good Mandelbulb3d animation. All right. So, well, thanks for the folks that came. I hope if there's any questions you have or anything, email me or let me know. And we'll do more live streams like this and get into Mandelbulb in kind of a deeper way that those long series of tutorials, well, all of what I talked about today is all there, but I think what happens is that this really core information has just kind of gotten buried in all those videos. So I wanted to use this live stream to really focus on one topic, and that's getting a really good 8K still image, which I think we did. So thanks for joining me. We'll see you in the next live stream. Take care.